today. Hopefully you are here for tips for managing a remote team. If not, you are on the wrong flight, and we'd ask you to deplane now. But we are going to talk about managing a remote team during COVID-19. And that content is relevant even if you're managing a remote team in a non-pandemic or crisis time. We're going to talk quite a bit about remote engagement in this third part of our ongoing series on remote engagement. And as you can see, I am not alone today. I'll introduce you to my co-host in just a minute, but what we know is that if you've taken the time out of your busy and likely chaotic schedule, you are already a change agent for being here, and change starts here with you today. I am Gary Magenta. I'm Senior Vice President at Root Inc. and our Chief Change Architect. We're talking about managers today, which is a near and dear subject to me. I have a book out called The Unbossy Boss, 12 Powerful Questions to Help You Be a Great Manager, and a forthcoming book that I have co-authored with my colleague Tracy Fletcher called Boss, the original four-letter word. So this is a subject that I love to talk about and hopefully can offer some expertise today. I've also brought another expert from Root with me on managers, and that is Rochelle Rogers. Rochelle, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. We are 240 strong, and I'm really glad to be circled up with you fellow leaders as we talk about this leadership moment of truth. I am a senior consultant and leadership development coach at Root, and I come with 20 years of experience in leading teams at the operations level, including for business continuity and people that are working remotely. So I've got a little experience under my belt, as I'm sure some of you do too, and I'm excited that we can circle up. I don't know where else 245 people can circle up, Gary.
Well, I know, Rochelle, people are really going to value your experience today, so thanks for being here with us.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's get started. This is the third in a series, Rochelle, and we've been asking people every week, where are you calling in from? Is it home or the office? And what we found is that in the first week, we had 45% of our people working from home, and still the majority, 55%, working from the office. And last week, really interesting, we became sort of this Miss Pac-Man infographic on the right screen, where only 10% were working from home and 90% from the office. So I'm going to ask the same question again today. Are you at your home or are you at your office? So just take a look in that chat box.
Good.
And in the bottom right.
Good. So are you at home or at your office? We've all found our way to the chat, and I haven't seen one office. Oh, there's an office. We had a feeling that there might be one or two. We have two, Michelle.
Three.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But not 10%. Yeah, still a couple of them hanging in there from the office, holding down the fort.
Well, you know, there are some people who just can't.
No.
Somebody just at home for 10 days. I feel you. Parents' house, no, not your parents' house. Okay. Well, I'm going to also say, as we're seeing this predominance of home, I think it's more than 90%, but we'll calculate it after. I'm seeing a lot of names of people that I've worked with over the last 20 years. So thank you all for being here, and we hope we can add some value to you. For those people who are in your offices who have no other choice, we thank you for being there as well.
We do.
So, Rochelle, let's see what else is happening with our people before we dig into the content.
Yeah, so it's possible, Gary, that many of us have kind of seen a version of this before where the office was not available, and we would love to know if you have seen a version of this, and it could be for a number of reasons: power outages, hurricanes, shelter-in-place drills. There's all kinds of things that could have led to this. So how many of us have experienced an office shutdown before? Everybody had to go home. Yes. It had to happen. Yeah, why would that have happened?
We have a lot of yeses.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Beth. I'm saying hi to my friend Beth, who said yes. Yes. Snow, emergency, yes, several times, short period of time. Strikes, hurricanes, weather-related, yes, power outages, hurricane. So we've seen a lot of these are natural disaster. So this is, while not a natural disaster, is another, Mother Nature sort of event. So yes, for small amounts of time, terrorist related.
Oh.
We've been there before. A bit of uncertainty now of how long this is going to be, but for sure this is not the first time, but it's feels different, Rochelle.
It
Would
does.
you agree?
Yes, it feels
Yeah.
more wide sweeping and like there are fewer options.
Yeah. So a lot of people have said, you know, sort of snow or hurricane you get when the weather's going to subside or the water's going to subside, and this is a little bit more uncertain. We know that we're all dealing with what the word we're hearing is chaos and uncertainty caused by COVID-19. We just don't know, and it feels chaotic. And our priorities are shifting by the hour, and I've been saying this every week, by the hour or even by the minute. But what's a little bit different in my message this week is that it's prompting an even greater need for people leaders, those employees that we have that lead others, to connect with their team members. And people leaders have to act differently and certainly more deliberately to engage people remotely. It's just different when you're not passing each other in the hallway or grabbing something to eat in the cafeteria. You're just not having that natural interaction, those collisions, as Tony Hsieh likes to say. You've got to create those collisions. And the Root team, that's me and Rochelle and the 176 other people back at the ranch or individual ranches today are here to help you do just that. In fact, we've got a few promises for you. During our time together today, we're going to share the changing mindset of our people leaders during this time, because the way they're thinking and acting is shifting as well. And we also want to share with you some techniques to prepare your managers to engage a remote team confidently and effectively, which is really important right now.
We'll have tips on how to facilitate consistent, open, and honest conversations with people serving on the front line about what's happening now and what may be happening later and everything that falls in between. And we'll also have a guided approach to help leaders lead their teams during these uncertain times, these chaotic times, and while we're distant from one another.
Thanks for that,
There
Rochelle.
it is.
Here's what we know. We started a few weeks back with the beginning of travel bans and then schools closing. I've been on a bunch of conference calls this week where kids are in the backgrounds, little kids, and it's cute actually, are sitting on their mom or dad's lap during the call. No groups with more than 10 people are supposed to congregate. Then we moved to work from home for so many of us, and then states and cities are on lockdown, and I've got the news on silent behind me, and it's now I think 16 states are on lockdown. And so we have gone in the last 2 weeks from OMG to WTF, and it happened quickly. And I want to be really respectful at this sensitive time, but that is what it feels like for many of us. Oh my goodness, this is different, to WTF, what is happening here?
What it feels like. And so we're curious to know how you guys are feeling. You know, this OMG to WTF is like the rug just been ripped out from under you. How are you feeling? Give us a couple of words or a word. What's going on in your mind? How are you feeling?
Thankful for bread. The WTF. Uncertain, uneasy.
Yeah, uneasy.
Oh, I hear empowered. Good for you. Both. Trapped. Safe, which is great. Frozen in time. Yeah.
Wow.
Overwhelmed. Grateful to have a job. Anxious.
Learning fast. Learning.
Yeah, regaining equilibrium. Good for you. Overwhelmed. Anxious. Making it work. Optimistic. Busy, right? It seems really busy. Yeah. More connected with my family. That's nice. Resilient. Overwhelmed, trying to balance the child care and the work. Silver lining, planning for the worst. So we have, I think, all ends, yeah, the whole gamut from really concerned to grateful. And I'm sure those feelings overlap because I know I'm feeling both of them. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my work. And I'm also feeling, you know, anxious as well. You, Rochelle?
Yes. You could ask me this question in an hour and you might get a different answer. It really is touch and go.
Yeah, this last one here is when will everything finish? That's uncertainty and concern. Yeah. So when we've been just looking over the last couple of weeks, for those of us who focus on managers, what's the impact on those people leaders? And there's this quote that our colleague Allison Lazenby brought us, and she focuses her entire day on the people leader segment. And she brought us this quote recently that just really took us back for a minute. And Rochelle, can you help us with that quote?
Yep.
From a people leader.
Here's the voice of a people leader. I'm overwhelmed. I want to take action, but I have zero power or control, and I feel like I'm failing. We're getting no direction, so I'm just not showing up.
And what makes me sad about that, because besides that feeling of being out of control, is that the I'm just not showing up piece, that's not what our frontline people need. They need managers that are showing up and showing up in the best form of themselves. And the I'm not showing up just really saddened me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're here to help think about that.
So what are your people leaders saying? So that quote came from Allison, and we're speaking to leaders all over the globe, supporting them, but I'm sure you are too. What are people in your organization saying? What are the people leaders saying? How are they feeling? Can you tell us in the chat? How's everybody feeling during this leadership moment of truth? So leaders are coaching one another. Be patient. Be forgiving.
How do I manage this virtual team? Give each other grace.
Grace.
Go easy.
Yeah. Be adaptive.
Overwhelmed, unknowledgeable. Thankful for FaceTime. Overwhelmed. Assume positive intent. Sure.
That's
Communication is key. We're going to talk about that. Be patient. This is crazy. Very vocal. Tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, we're going to talk about just that. Good. These are great lead-ins. Remain focused on what you can, show gratitude, working hard to get things done but scrambling, worried about remote aspect, sure. Thank you so much. They were adapting to new norms for sure. Words mean a lot, and the front line is exhausted. They are swimming. And it may feel upstream, So I'm so happy for that. Chat and Rochelle recommended we ask that question there, so thanks, Rochelle. I think we're going to answer a lot of that. Rochelle's going to help us with that. For many people, they feel paralyzed. They're sort of stuck, and we need to help those people leaders from stuck, locked, or frozen, somebody said here, in time, thank you for that, to mobilized, fast-tracked, and able to engage their people. And so we see managers lost in this maze of uncertainty and questions with the best of intent wanting to engage their teams. And what they need, what they really benefit from, is a leader's GPS, something to guide them through that uncertainty, to navigate. And thank you. Somebody just said trying to navigate new tools. Sure, we believe navigate is the right word, so thank you for that. And we've got a leader's GPS that we want to take you through. And before Rochelle takes you through the leader's GPS, what we want you to know is, after this webinar, you're going to get an interactive version of this Leaders GPS that you can provide to all of your people leaders to help them coach themselves through that uncertainty and be the chief engagement officers that their teams need them to be. So Rochelle, take us through what people will get after the webinar.
Okay, good. Let me walk you through it so you know what you're holding here. It seems very complex to be in the maze, but it still calls for a balanced approach. And so this navigation system will help you deal with this uncertainty and chaos and distance. We call it the Leader's GPS, and it's basically a set of powerful questions that you will ask yourself as a leader. Shoulders back, head up, look in the mirror, ask yourself these questions, and they will lead you to the right mindset. All right? So the first question relates to your role as a leader. What's my responsibility in this as a leader? Okay, that's the question you'll ask yourself. The answer that it will lead you to is I'm about people. That is my job as a leader, is to put people first. I'm a people leader, which makes me, like Gary said, a chief engagement officer. This is my focus. And it's a shift that we make every day as leaders, remembering to put people first and to be the chief engagement officer. But it matters now more than ever that we hit the accelerator on this, because this is our work as leaders. Okay, so there's a couple of tips, because we are, things are uncertain, things are chaotic, and we're at a distance. So we've got a couple of tips that will help you do this. One is hold more frequent team and one-on-one connects, okay? This is going to be something that you're going to have to really focus on during this time that we're away from each other. And when you do that, make sure to reach out about what's personally going on with people before you talk about the business. That's an important way to put your people first. And then another way to make certain you're putting others first is ask questions and then listen. We're going to need to do this more now than ever, Gary, in our balance framework during this time.
Yeah, for sure. We've got people, the mindset here is put people first for sure, and think of yourself not as that people leader, but as the chief engagement officer. And I love that tip on people first and business second. Talk about the personal first, because you have to see where people are at. If they're frozen, if they're paralyzed, they won't be able to listen to those business priorities anyway. So ask questions, listen. Thank you so much for tip 1, because we know that emotional engagement is important before the intellectual connection. Your job as a leader is to connect to the heartstrings and the mind, and now more than ever, those heartstrings are important. And I think, Rochelle, just as you and I are doing here on this webinar, and we've been trying to hold most of our meetings at Root, you as people leaders, or your people leaders, need to get face-to-face even when you're not face-to-face. This is important because you can see so much of what somebody's feeling or dealing with just by looking at them.
It's another form of listening, right, is to watch for that. Good.
It certainly is.
Good.
So
okay.
What's next?
Okay, so we've looked in the mirror and we said, okay, I'm a leader and I need to focus on my people, and now we're going to ask a question that has to do with knowing the business. What information is most important for the team to understand, and how will I share it? Okay, this is our big picture element. This is where we as leaders have more responsibility to back up, zoom out, and think about what's going on a broader scale. Okay, a couple of ways that can help you do that. One is make sure you start with that. Start with the big picture and how your company and team can best respond. Put things in perspective is what that's going to help you do. Make sure that you talk about the specific changes you're asking of the individual, and then don't be afraid to say that you don't know. And I'm going to add to that, Gary, not only should you not be afraid to say that you don't know, but understand that the answer may change, okay? That's the grace that we're going to give each other. Something is better than nothing. Focus on the big picture.
And for some leaders, Rochelle, who believe that their job is to have all the answers,
exactly.
Oh my goodness, this is the time to give that up. Put it on a shelf, literally. Let it go. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know, and don't be afraid to say, I know that's what I said yesterday, and things have changed.
Good.
The idea I talk about all the time, that old-time leaders, old-fashioned leaders think their job is to have the answer. Not today. You're going to try, but you just may not have it. So be willing.
Your job to find it. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we focus on our role, people. We've got the big picture, and now it's our job to add meaning, to make connections, add meaning. The question we can ask ourselves to direct us is, how does each person on the team impact this, and how will I connect them to it? All right, that's the connection and the meaning that needs to happen. Okay, in times of uncertainty, chaos, and now that we're distant, I think one of the things that is a North Star more now than ever is the organization's purpose. Make sure that you're connecting everything to the purpose. All actions should point north, okay? Even though, like Gary said before, we might be shifting and turning on a dime, we're still always directed towards our organization's true north, and that's purpose.
For sure. So I think here is a real good opportunity to take that higher calling, Rochelle, and make sure that people understand those actions are tied to something bigger than themselves. You can pull them out of that individual mindset to that I'm a part of something bigger than myself here. Yeah, great tip. Tip 3, connect your team members' actions to your company's purpose. Thank you for that.
All right, so our framework. Yep,
final one.
I got excited. Our framework is balanced, and we do all this because we know that we need to deliver. This is a leadership moment of truth. We have civic and business leaders stepping up all over the place. Leadership is not limited to a title right now. We have to ask ourselves, what leadership skills do I need to maximize so that my team can be successful, okay? And there are lots of skills. Yeah, there are lots of skills, Gary, but here's the thing. Here's what we need to focus on right now during times of uncertainty, chaos, and distance. Celebrate is very important. We see it all over the television and all kinds of new ways of people to celebrate as much as you can. Coach and develop is still very relevant. I saw in the chat earlier that somebody is learning like crazy. This is a very steep learning curve for a lot of us. It's a huge developmental time. We have to be as clear as we possibly can right now. Even if the answer changes, when you do know what you want to do, be very clear. And then relationships are still important, guys. A lot of leaders think when they're being squeezed and stressed that it's an excuse to throw kindness out the door. That is not true. You will find yourself earning a lot of emotional bank account credits with the way that you treat people in this moment in time. You will find yourself having new relationships that will serve you from this point on.
Yeah. So, Rochelle, we got a question from David who said, what if your company doesn't have a purpose?
Oh,
and
okay.
So I think Mary Beth answered, unless she's asking that of Ruth. I think it's, what is your company's mission? It's not your vision, but it is sort of why do you get up every day? That's the way I think about it. Why do you get up every day? That's your purpose. And some companies talk about that as their mission. That may be even the more traditional word for that.
It is.
Yeah.
Good.
So David, hopefully that answers your question, and if it doesn't, you'll chat back to us. So the Celebrate piece, I think, is just so unique right now. In that, I'm seeing all these online virtual celebrations. Let's have virtual happy hour. I think this gives you an opportunity to be really, really creative. Get your people together and celebrate just the small wins right now. So out of all of these, I love the Celebrate, and I just feel like this is a time to build relationships like none others, because there may be you may be working with really strange bedfellows right now, and the person you thought you had no connectivity to before may be your new work wife or your new work husband.
Yeah. Good. So Gary, we're moving very, very fast, and we're doing that because our time today is primarily to invoke a passion around this topic. I just want to remind everybody that's joined us today that there is something coming their direction that has everything that you and I've talked about in terms of this navigation system and the tips. What we're doing while we're together is just kind of feeding the fire so that we feel compelled to use that.
And we are now, by the way, Rochelle, we are 300 strong on this call right now. So good for you all. Let's just do a little review here. What Rochelle helped us understand is knowing your role is critical right now as a people leader. You are the Chief Engagement Officer, and connecting people to that big picture of your business is going to be critical to your purpose, and ultimately delivering results through your people by celebrating, setting clear expectations, coaching and developing them in this moment. And you'll get all of this in an interactive PDF. But we also want to know what's working for you.
Okay,
what are you doing that you can share with others?
So people have made their way to the chat already. If you haven't, please let us know what's working for you, because we're here to share and learn from one another. So communicating and celebrating via FaceTime, focusing on leadership is working for people. They're saying, hey, this is a good time to really buckle down and be the right kind of leader. Making sure our mindset is in the right place, daily huddles and stand-ups, video chats, using all the technology that's available to us to connect virtually, checking in daily, hourly. Good.
Zoom,
yes.
video, virtual.
This is good.
Frequent communication, virtual social team gatherings. I love that.
Yeah.
More team video huddle. So the morning team video huddle, thank you for that. Also, don't forget the individual. So the morning team huddle on your computer, great, but this FaceTime one-on-one is really critical as well.
Everybody's in a different spot, Gary. Everybody's in a different spot. You can't assume that we're all enjoying this and growing and having a good point of view. Some of us need a little more.
Yeah, and Samir said, ask people how they're feeling.
Yeah.
That feeling piece is different than doing. How are you doing and how are you feeling are two separate things. I love that. Create team chat groups for sure. I will just say a couple of weeks ago I was thinking, I need to get better at Teams and I need to get better at WebEx. I'm pretty darn good today after the past 10 days. It's here and it's fun and it's engaging. Yeah, share fun. So virtual lunches with team members, just did that the other day as well. My BEP starts every meeting, by asking how everybody's feeling today.
Right.
This is important. That's the emotional engagement piece I was talking about before. If we don't have people's hearts, we can't have their minds. Ask them how they're feeling. That's awesome. So we're going to stay on long as we do every week to take questions, but there's some housekeeping before we get to the end here that I think it's important. So we want to know, first of all, what's important for you to talk about next time. We hear some clamoring for a digital conference, but that seems to also change based on what's happening during the week. So do you want to hear about how to create a digital conference? Would you like to hear about maintaining culture with a remote workforce? And if you'd like to hear one of those, do one or two. But if you have another idea, mark it 3 and put it in the chat box. Okay. Yes, culture, big. Culture, 2, 3. We've got some suggestions. Lots of 2. Overwhelming culture. So thank you for that. We will go and we'll tally. Keep bringing in your answers, how to connect on video. So there are some 3s, overwhelming 2. I'm not seeing a lot, if any, 1s. So this is really helpful. Keep those coming because we will tally those afterwards. Thank you so much for that. We want to share with you what you're getting next. In your email after this webinar, look for a link to this recording. You will get the 4 critical points of the leader's GPS, as well as that interactive piece. You'll get the tips we talked about in detail. So you get everything we discussed in an interactive format with detail. Today was just to give you sort of a primer to what you can expect. We want you to distribute that to your people leaders. That is our way of reaching out to you. We want your people leaders to be working as effectively as possible during this time. So look for the recording, look for the leader's GPS interact in an interactive format, and the tips. We also want you to know that through another email, we're going to be launching a new virtual workshop series. Again, at this time, it is completely complimentary to you. We're calling this Leading Through Uncertainty, and this is all geared to help your people prevail when the stuff hits the fan, and it has hit the fan. So through April 2nd and 16th, we're going to have 5 separate classes. These classes, again complimentary, only have a seat capacity of 30 people. So when you get that email, you're going to want to sign up quickly and help your people, not just leaders, lead through uncertainty. So look for that as well. And as we round out our half hour together, we have the Q&A, and we're going to stay here as long as you have questions. So thank you to Susan for being here. We are opening it up for questions now. What questions do you have?
Good. So, Gary, we may have had some participants that came today, and they've got something very specific on their mind, and based on what we've talked about, hopefully that triggered it. So we'll hang back and look in the chat. If you'll just let us know in the chat a question. I'm glad Catherine's looking forward to the April session.
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
I know Kathy. Hi, Kathy.
Okay.
It's good to see you on here. Hope all is well.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for being here.
Our community of leaders.
So thank you for being together. Yep, thank you. What questions can we answer for you?
A lot of gratitude. I understand. We told them to celebrate, Gary. We have to celebrate. My friends are here too. Hi, Dad.
Key tips for so what are the key tips? Amanda wants to know key tips for weekly for remote workers.
For newly remote workers. Okay, can I answer that one?
Sure, please.
Okay, so when people first start working remotely from home, there's a lot of things that don't translate directly from the office. So if we could help them understand that it's important that they keep a schedule, because they can really get carried away working all the time when they're remote. When you're in the office, there's a rhythm that kind of everybody goes home and you wrap up and you do too. It's real easy to work around the clock when you're working from home, so some guidance around that. Also trying to find a place that works, and I know it's harder today because everybody is home, but try to find a place that's yours that allows you to work effectively so that you feel productive instead of frustrated. And then also there's going to be a little ramp-up time for learning how to do things remotely that you previously did in the office. So give yourself that time to be able to do that and use the resources that are available. And then finally, what we just said, make sure you stay in communication with your team members. The little chats, the way you would have used one another as resources, all of that's still relevant. It's just the tool is different.
Yeah.
What would you like to add, Gary? Yeah.
Well, no, I think that's great. Yes, the tool is different, and that whole idea of life-work balance when you're home all the time is really challenging, so it's a good call-out. There's someone here that didn't ask a question, but I think really raised something important. Lisa says, we're teaching our managers tips to connect and trust and being more responsive to staff in this remote environment. So could you talk a little bit, Rochelle, about trust and responsiveness? Because I think there's a really strong connection here that Lisa's calling out between trust and responsiveness.
Yes, thank you so much, Lisa, for saying that, because in the remote environment, we need to know that our leaders are there. And so, you know, there may have been some rules before where we don't text at night or on weekends, or we don't send email, or we don't do phone calls. Now, leaders are kind of available all the time, and that's our way of meeting our people where they are, okay? And it's a way to make emotional deposits into their bank account. Right now, the world is making withdrawals. You turn on the news, and there's not a whole lot that's said that fills you with hope. But leaders need to meet people in that moment, and that moment may not be during the traditional day. Now, A leader's got to have reasonable expectations too, but just know that when you meet people where they are and when you respond very quickly, the distance that goes with them in terms of how they feel about you will continue even after this ends. It's very important.
Yeah. A few things I'm noticing. I'm trying to keep up with chat as you're sharing information, Rochelle.
Okay, thanks, Gary. I'm super
one is
excited.
people are asking for the previous sessions. My email is on
Good.
the screen. If you email me, we will send you the previous sessions. No problem. Happy to do that. Thanks for being here today. Angie Hyatt, who does our slides, great appreciation for the colorful presentation.
Thanks,
and somebody's asking, I've got an international team.
Yes.
How do I adjust for those nuances? That's such a
great.
Good question.
It is. So I think the global clock is a really important consideration. You have to understand that while you're eating, they're sleeping and vice versa. And so if you can find a time, there are crossover times on the global clock. I know that very well because I've managed global teams before and I have a student that lives overseas. Find that little window and make certain that you schedule time to connect then, that you're very, very available. And then have a plan for how you reach out otherwise. Like send me an email and I promise I'll respond within this period of time. Those are really, really important agreements to come up with in advance so that people know how to reach out to you. They understand how to do that.
And what I'd add to that, Rochelle, right now is that we know that Spain and Italy are dealing with COVID-19 in a different way than other parts of the world. So I think we have to have global sensitivity to what's going on in that country. And I would even say in the cities specifically, because there are cities that are harder hit. So let's manage expectations. I don't think it's everybody is equal in this time. If you're dealing with people who are in one of the cities that are, or countries that are hit harder, we may be offering them a little bit more flexibility. So let's just be sensitive to that.
Good. And then also to language. So we're using some different tools where maybe people are typing and they're having to translate not only verbally, but now I'm going to have to put it in writing. Grace there is really important. If you know what somebody's saying, they basically said it. We don't have to get all caught up on semantics.
Yes, for sure.
Good.
So, Rochelle.
Yes.
When you think about I want to do this, how are experiences different right now depending on where we are in this? So people are in different places. They're having different experiences both personally and as leaders. How do we manage that people are all experiencing something different right now?
Okay, so I think the first answer is to find out what that is. Do not make assumptions, okay? There are people with school-age children whose children maybe are used to working at home and have a quiet place and they're fine. And there are some where their children are not used to being at home and they need a lot of attention. Don't assume that you understand what somebody is going through just because you know the situation on the surface. What people are struggling with and what they're worried about is super-duper unique to them. That's why Gary and I are always saying ask questions.
Ask questions. Say it together.
Ask questions.
You have to ask first. There's no two people that love talking more than me and Rochelle, but I think what we will tell you is ask the question and be quiet and listen.
Definitely.
You will hear a lot.
Yes.
Thank you for that concern of making sure that we treat everybody as individuals. It's the other reason why we say get on FaceTime. It's not just about the team meeting. Well, thank you all for being here. We know we're now past time, and, well, we'll take this last question. Let's see what this one is. I have 5. This one looks like it's going to be good. I have 5 little dogs and can't figure out why I'm home and who I'm talking to. And who you're talking to, they hear your voices.
Okay, so I want to respond to that, Mary Beth. It's energy that they're responding to. I've noticed that about my animals, too. They don't really respond to language. They respond to energy. Gary, you and I need to take this as a compliment because that means our energy is making it all the way to Mary Beth and the people that occupy the first plane of her space.
She didn't say that they were barking or not, so Mary Beth would be interested if they were barking or they were sleeping. So, Mary Beth, thank you for helping us wrap things up. Here's the final comment for the day, I think. First, our gratitude back to you for being here and all of your kind words in the chat boxes and your questions. Rochelle and I and 176 other Roosters are here to help you. We recognize this is not the time that we're in pitch mode on the next project. We're in how can we help you think about what you're going through and be brainstorm partners with you with no obligation. So feel free to reach out to me and Rochelle to brainstorm whatever it is that you're going through. We will help if we can, and if we can't, I guarantee you one of the other 176 others back at the ranch will be able to. You have our contact information. You can also go to www.rootinc.com and download our remote engagement page. Thank you all so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time, likely to talk about your choice of how do you maintain culture in a remote environment. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.